My name's Thomas Bodendorf, and I'm interviewing you for the Gilder Lehrman program I'm at in high school. And can you introduce yourself?
Johann Mainz.
Okay. What was life like growing up in Germany before the war started?
Before the war started, well, you know that in the beginning it was all very good because a lot of promises were made, and before Hitler came to power there was a lot of unemployment, and also economy wasn't good. And then of course he started building the Autobahn, and it was the expressways, and they were the first expressways in Europe, and of course so he could give people a lot of employment, and also the money was good, the economy was much better, and of course in hindsight we know that it was all for a certain purpose, preparation for war, but at that time of course nobody knew.
Mhm.
So
What jobs did your parents have?
my father was a foreman in a factory that made steel wire to be used on ships and submarines.
What were your parents' thoughts about Hitler's rise to power?
Well, my parents were social democrats, and but in those days you didn't mention that.
Mm-hmm. What were your parents' opinion not being part of Germany till 1935?
Pardon?
Like being in the Tsar and not living in Germany.
35.
Yeah.
Until 1935. Well, my father would have liked to stay as it was, a German province under French administration. My mother no, and all my relatives no, because in the Tsar people there are less people. The Tsar is right next to France, but there are less people in the Tsar that speak French than in Berlin,
Mm-hmm.
which is strange. But Berlin took in a lot of Huguenots in the Middle Ages, and so a lot of French people came to Berlin. So there's quite a bit of French spoken in Berlin.
Were your family severely affected by the Great Depression?
Very much so.
How would it?
Yeah, how?
Well, you know, the money lost its value completely, and there was a time when you had to pay several million German marks for one loaf of bread, and that of course ended all when Hitler came.
Were you part of the Hitler Youth?
Yes, everybody was.
What were your experiences in the Hitler Youth?
Well, my experience with the Hitler Youth was very, very funny. I'm not at all sport. I don't like sport. So, and in the Hitler Youth, they stressed sport a lot. And I had a lady friend who had a cigarette store, and she gave me cigarettes were rationed, of course. And the leader of my Hitler Youth troop was a chain smoker. And so I gave him cigarettes, and he wrote in his book, attended, and I never attended, because I knew what it was about. You had to play football, and you had to run, and so on. That was never my thing. But that was individual,
Yeah.
you know. Most people liked Hitler Youth because it started out being something like pathfinders, you know. But then it became militarized.
What was your reaction about the start of the invasion of Europe to
what?
Poland? What was your reaction of the start of the war in Europe?
The start of the war
In Europe.
in Europe, well, it was in 1939. I was 12 years old. Well, of course, in the beginning, people still had a lot of faith in Hitler and so on. And then, of course, there was one victory after another. They took France in no time. They took Poland in no time. They went into half of Russia in no time. And so, of course, people were very euphoric. But then the tide changed.
Did you have any interactions with any Allied troops during the war?
Not I.
Did your family ever have to move because the Allies?
Well, of course, after the war, Germany was divided in four sections: the French section, the Russian section, the American section, and the English section. We were in the French section, which wasn't too good to be in the French section because the French had been occupied during the war. So of course they had revenge feelings. The Americans were considered the best because they actually had never directly suffered from the Germans. The English were pretty bad off too because they, being an island, they had food rationing even later than Germany, and Germany had already enough food to still ration. And the Russians, of course, I mean, everybody wanted to get out of Russia.
Did your views change on Hitler during the course of the war?
Well, of course, everybody's views changed.
Like, when did it start to change?
Well, really, when Stalingrad happened. When Stalingrad happened, that was until then the German troops were going forward, and then of course, well, it was different. So. But of course, you couldn't say anything. We had in Germany, you had a controlled press, and of course, you listened only to what they told you. And actually, some people tried to listen to a foreign radio,
Yes.
but they had certain cars running through the streets all the time, and they had what do you call that, listening devices, so they could tell exactly which family listened to that went to concentration camp.
Why did you choose to leave Germany after the war?
What did I think of Germany after the war?
No, choose to leave Germany.
Oh, you could what did you think of Germany after the war?
Well, I mean, it was still very bad, and that's why I left.
Is that why you left? Because you were just in ruins?
Well, first of all, the cities were destroyed. My home city was 60% destroyed, and it was hard to get any decent job, and so
What?
it was hard to get any decent job.
Was your house destroyed, and did you have to move?
Our house was half destroyed. As a matter of fact, my father was prisoner of war. My mother and my sister and I were in the middle, because we were evacuated, you know. So we were in the middle of, so I was the first one to go back. And when I came back, half the apartment was bombed.
How was your experiences ever as a refugee in the war?
After?
Well, you said you had to evacuate your home. So how was it like not having a home?
Well, we were evacuated twice in the beginning of the war because it close to France and they didn't know whether the French would come in because of the Maginot Line. And so we were away for a year. Then the government asked people, it was established, if a family of so and so many people had so and so many rooms, and if there were more than were deemed necessary, then these rooms were requested for the refugees, and the same thing happened in 1944.
What work did you get when you first arrived in the United States?
Oh, very hard work. I didn't arrive I arrived in Canada. I'm actually a Canadian citizen, and so very hard work.
Do you feel
I was disappointed. I had come with my last pennies to Canada. If I had had enough money, I would have turned around right away. But I didn't have enough money, and I was ashamed to go back, so I sticked it out, and then things became better.
Do you feel you ever discriminated or stereotyped for being a German immigrant?
Well, not too badly so, but of course there was a lot of anti-German feeling, and more so in the States than in Canada.
Did you learn English in Germany, or did you learned it once you got to
When I came here, I went to London for 6 weeks.
What was the name of the town you lived in?
Saarbrücken,
Um,
which is the capital of the Saar region.
when like the Allies were pushing into Germany after they liberated France, did you have to move again?
Then we had to move again, yes. In
Wait.
44, we were still there and we saw the German tanks come back of France, and then we knew that the end was pretty close.
Where did you move once you had to leave your town?
In the center, near Nuremberg, small town near Nuremberg.
You said your father was a prisoner of war. Did he fight in the army?
Actually, my father was because he was too old. He was excused from army service until 6 weeks before the war, and then he was taken. It wasn't the army. It was I don't know what you call that. As the last resort, they took very young boys
The National Guard, basically.
and older people and so on. So actually, he was a soldier for 6 weeks. Not a soldier, but I mean, what do you call that, civil guard or something
Yeah.
like that. And then he was a prisoner of war for 2 years.
When did you meet up with your father after the war?
It was in 1950. As I said,
Yeah.
my point of view is that of a very young boy, you know, a child and a very young boy. Of course, at the end, everybody was against Hitler, you know, and
Were you happy when it was all over?
of course, because I was very, very lucky not to, I was 16 when the war was over, and we were at the middle of the country in a small town, and the order for me to report to the army had gone by mistake to my place of birth. And at that time there was hardly any transportation. So the order for me to report to the army came to this town the day before the Americans came in. So
you were lucky, yeah.
so that was my great luck. And while the country was divided, when you went to, I did opera tours, and I went many times to Bayreuth, which was right at the edge of the Russian zone, and you saw the tanks going back and forward, even in 1954, 55, and so on.
What year did you leave Germany?
What
year did you leave Germany to, like, Canada and the United States?
What did I?
What year?
Oh, in 1952, January 1952.
Was there any air raids on your town when you were living in it?
Yes, many.
Any?
Almost nightly, because Saarbrücken was a very important industrial city. It's no longer so. It was steel and coal, and now, of course, the steel and the coal comes from China at much slower rates. So,
Okay, I think that's it.
okay,
Thank you.
okay. I hope you can.